The First Row Sports Show. Check us out on Twitter and Facebook.
Comes again to the sideline. Batted up. Oh, God! Stokely down the sideline. Can they catch him?
With your host, Darnell Duff.
Good evening, good afternoon, morning, whenever you're listening to this, but this is the First Row Sports Show coming to you right on YouTube. Check us out on SoundCloud, the First Row Sports Show, and on Facebook, the First Row Sports Show Facebook page. Get in on the monthly draw. You could pick up yourself a brand new CFL jersey, any team, any name. All you got to tell me what your favorite player and team is, and you're in that draw. We're going to do that draw on June 11th, so you only have a few more days to check us out on Facebook. Joined by Taylor Allen today. Taylor, we got a few things to talk about today. First of all, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. I mean, for starters, I'm not a fan of the Golden Knights or the Cleveland Cavaliers, so things are going okay for me in my sports world. And I just graduated this week as well. I've been busy with that, and I start work tomorrow with the Winnipeg Free Press. So I'll be kicking things off with the high school track and field championships at the U of M, so I'll be a good time. And yeah, it'll be a nice long summer of covering sports for the Freak, so it should be a good time for sure.
Well, I know I'm sort of covering those track and field championships too, and I was looking online today for the results, and they had a bunch of times and where they placed, but I guess after about 20 minutes, and I wrote about 20 people down, I looked, and it hadn't even started yet, so I don't know if those were regional times, and I'm like, what an idiot I am. I'm like, always look at the times first.
Well, there you go. You can learn from your mistake. I mean, luckily I covered it last year, so I made a couple of mistakes for sure, but this year should be a little easier for sure. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Well, you know who is a team who is making mistakes right now? It's the Vegas Golden Knights, and I don't even know if they're making that many mistakes, but they are down 3-1. They won the first game of the series, a slugfest. Now they've lost 3 in a row to Barry Trotz, Dauphin Boy Barry Trotz, and the Washington Capitals. What have been your thoughts on this series, all put aside, you don't like the Golden Knights? What has held them back from, being closer in the series than what they are, obviously, going into tonight where Washington could win their first ever Stanley Cup title?
Well, I think there are a lot of very frustrated Winnipeg Jets fans watching this series because this Vegas Golden Knights team in the final hasn't looked anything like the team that took down the Jets in 5 games. So as a Jets fan, that's definitely been frustrating for sure. But it's kind of funny. I mean, the whole knock on the Washington Capitals have been for years is that they're always a strong regular season team, but in the playoffs they find a way to choke every year. And sure, Ovechkin could score 1 million goals, but there's no way he'll ever win the big one. And this year's team, I mean, don't get me wrong, they have a lot of talent, but they've had more talented teams in the past. They've had several teams win the President's Trophy and whatnot, but they've always flamed out in the playoffs, like I said before. But here they are. Braden Holtby makes a miraculous turnaround from that first round, carries the team all the way to the final now. The team's playing good on both ends. And now they're 1 game away from winning the Stanley Cup. But even then, I mean, even though Vegas hasn't looked as good in this series, if history does repeat itself, you never know. Washington is a team that has blown a 3-1 series lead 5 times, which is the most in NHL history. So, I mean, obviously, if I was a betting man, I'd still bet on the Capitals to get it done. But this series is far from over. And then let's not forget that in the past couple of years, there has been some series where 3-1 leads have been blown in other sports. I mean, you look at the NBA Finals where Cleveland was down 3-1 to the Golden State Warriors, and no one thought they'd come back, and sure enough, they pulled that one off. And then the Cleveland Indians had a 3-1 lead over the Chicago Cubs, and the Cubs finally ended their 108-year drought by winning 3 in a row there as well. So it could be the NHL's turn to have a 3-1 series lead blown in the final, but that remains to be seen, and I'm excited to see what happens tonight, that's for sure.
Now, you talk about Winnipeg Jets fans being frustrated with, Vegas played so good against Winnipeg. And yes, I think Winnipeg was probably beaten up after that Nashville series. They easily got past Minnesota. But I think most of the frustration has to be going toward William Karlsson. Really, if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan and if you're a Vegas Golden Knights fan, he didn't practice yesterday. It was an optional practice, so he'll be back in the lineup tonight, obviously, with the first line of Riley Smith and Jonathan Marchizzo. But he has not been very good at all. He's got just 1 goal in the first 4 games of the Cup Final and 2 goals and 1 assist in the past 7 games. That is not good enough to get it done if you're first line guy. You look at how good he was in the first round of the playoffs and the regular season, and then in the second round of the playoffs and against the Winnipeg Jets. He has to be better tonight, and if William Karlsson is not better, now you got to give it, obviously credit to the Washington Capitals for playing lockdown defense on him. But if you're a top level player, just like Ovechkin is doing against the Vegas Golden Knights are staying on him, but Ovechkin is doing whatever he wants. Like, he's belly flopping to put the puck in the back of the net. William Karlsson has to be better tonight, or Vegas really once again stands no chance, because Braden Holtby has been a brick wall all series long, and really all playoffs since he missed the first couple of games of the playoffs because Grubauer started.
Yeah, exactly. And another guy that obviously needs to be better tonight is Marc-Andre Fleury. I mean, the Jets couldn't even dream of scoring 6 goals against him. And sure enough, last game of the final year, Washington absolutely lights him up for 6. So yeah, obviously Fleury's another guy that needs to kind of bounce back here. And sure enough, he's got the most Stanley Cup Final experience out of everyone between both teams. So I'm sure we'll have a much better game from him tonight. But yeah, like I was kind of saying before, like this Vegas team, they have shown some flashes, but it kind of seems like they haven't really gotten that puck luck that they kind of got in the Jets series. I mean, I hate making excuses and whatever. I'm never a guy that blames the referees or whatever, but it kind of seemed like the Vegas Golden Knights kind of whenever they needed a lucky bounce in the Jets series, they got one. And this series is just that really hasn't been the case. And sure enough, that's why they found themselves in a big 3-1 hole here. And Mr. Ovechkin, who, like I said before, the whole knock on his career has been the fact he hasn't won a Stanley Cup. He's one game away from finally getting the monkey off his back. I mean, he's kind of on that list of guys like Dale Hawerchuk, Darryl Sittler, Daniel Alfredson, the Sedin twins, Matt Sundin, a couple other guys there that have had long, illustrious careers but never were able to hoist the Stanley Cup. So it'll be interesting to see if Ovechkin can take his name off that dreaded list, I'm sure.
And do you think it's going to happen tonight? Like, are the Washington Capitals, like, it's going to be their first title ever, and it's going to be Washington's first pro sports title, if they do win, in a quarter of a century? That's a quarter in money terms, if you're not aware. But, in almost 25 years is this Washington's year. And I firmly believe if they don't win tonight, they will not win this series, because, yes, they'll go back to Washington. Vegas will have the momentum from tonight's win. I think they're going to go back to Washington. They're going to spoil the party there. They're going to win Game 6, and then they're going to come back to Vegas for Game 7. And, boy, that is going to be one crazy Game 7. So I think if Washington has a chance, they do. Tonight has to be the night that they beat the Vegas Golden Knights, or they're not going to win the Cup.
Really? That's a bold take there, Darnell, especially as they're up 3-1. So I don't know if I agree with that. But I kind of like the fact you brought up the fact that it's been 25 years since a Washington pro team has won a championship. I mean, that was the Washington Redskins. And ever since then, really, if you look at all their sports teams, the Nationals are relatively new, but they really haven't had any success. I mean, the Redskins, they've been in turmoil this past decade or two. The Nationals have had some very good teams, but have always kind of flamed out in the playoffs as well. And then you look at the Capitals, who we've already talked about. And then there's the Wizards, who, other than having a washed out Michael Jordan for a couple of years, and John Wall, of course, their existence has been pretty forgettable these past 25 years as well. So Washington is definitely hungry for a pro sports championship, and I'm sure they'd be thrilled for the Capitals to end that drought. But obviously, if the sooner they get it done, the better. You don't want this to drag out, like I referenced before, those series in the NBA and MLB, where they quickly found themselves turning the opposite way. But it's been the last 31 series, Stanley Cup Final, where a team has led 3-1. They finished it off and they have won the series. So I believe that means Washington has a 97% chance at getting it done. So if history is on their side, they should be okay. But again, like I said, this team has blown more 3-1 series leads than any other team in NHL history. So it's kind of funny. There's like a stat on both sides saying, one side saying, yep, they're good, they're for sure going to win the Cup. And then there's that other number, which like, okay, no, this could get interesting still. So it's going to be fascinating for sure. I'm really excited to see what happens. But to be honest, I think Washington does get it done tonight, and Ovechkin finally gets to drink some beer or champagne or whatever he chooses out of that Stanley Cup.
I'm sure Ovechkin drinks some like weird Russian vodka, like 90%, like 2 shots and you're dead on the ground.
Yeah,
We're gonna see a headline tomorrow where Ovechkin's gonna have a couple shots of vodka and he's just gonna be on the ground with the cup, like drinking out of it. It could be absolutely crazy. Going into the series, the headlines were crazy. Vegas expansion team, inaugural season. The Washington Capitals, so good. They always buckle in the playoffs. Taylor, one final thought. What is the score tonight? You said the Capitals are gonna win. What are they gonna win by?
Also, another thought. Sorry. Can you imagine winning the Stanley Cup in Las Vegas? Like, is there any better scenario than that? I mean, also it'd be cool to win on home ice, but if you're gonna win the Cup on the road, like Vegas, come on, that's the best. That's the best possible place to ever win any pro championship. So if that's not more motivation for Washington to get it done, then I don't know what is. But yeah, I mean, last game was kind of nuts with a 6-2 game. But I think tonight. Obviously, Golden Knights are playing for their lives here, so I think it'll be a little closer matchup. But I'm going to give it to Washington 2-1. I think it's going to be another low-scoring game, but I do think Washington gets it done, and they get to party with the Cup on the Las Vegas Strip tonight.
Well, hey, I want Washington to win because that means the Cup is coming to Dauphin. Obviously, Barry Trott's a hometown boy, but I do think the Vegas Golden Knights are going to push this to 6 games, and like I said, if they do, they're going to win the Stanley Cup. Bold or not, it is what it is. A guy who has not blown too many series leads in the past, and you talked to him before, LeBron James, well, now he's got to go in miracle mode. We know what he can do, but can the rest of the Cleveland Cavaliers do it? We're talking about the NBA Final. Golden State up 3-0 against LeBron James and the Cavaliers. That's coming right up. You're listening to the First Row Sports Show.
You're listening to the First Row Sports Show, brought to you by Pass the Pop on 215 Main Street North in Dauphin. Whether you want pop, water, juice, or a sweet American chocolate bar, Pass the Pop has you covered. And if they don't have it in stock, they'll order it in. Check them out on Facebook at Pass the Pop Specialty Beverage Company, and don't forget, keep it locked to the First Row Sports Show for your chance to win the monthly draw. And don't forget about Trivia Tuesday, where you can win a $10 gift card to Pass the Pop or anywhere you'd like. More of the First Row Sports Show is coming up.
Welcome back to the First Row Sports Show, coming to you on YouTube. Make sure you check us out on Facebook, the First Row Sports Show Facebook page. Get in on the monthly draw. And of course, Trivia Tuesday, you could pick up a $10 gift card local to Pass the Pop. If you're not local, anywhere you want, gas shop, it does not matter. We're talking NBA Finals now. Darnell Duff and Taylor Allen joining me on the show today. And well, I guess it was just about a week ago. Actually, 7 days ago, Taylor, you predicted that Golden State was going to run away with this series after Game 1. Going in, 2 minutes left, I'm sure you were probably biting your words and thinking I was going to text you and say, haha. No, I didn't get to do that because, well, J.R. Smith blew it. George Hill blew a free throw. Like, I don't know what happened with LeBron James and the Cavaliers there. They ended up losing, and now they've lost 2 more straight games to go down 3-0. No team in NBA history has come back from a 3-0 deficit to win the NBA Finals. Now, I know your answer already. Is there any chance at all that Cleveland can come back and win the NBA title?
It would be pretty cool if they did, Darnell, but I have absolutely zero faith in that even being remotely possible. I mean, last week when I was on the show, I did say that Golden State was going to run wild over Cleveland, win this game, win the series in 4 straight. And I was really hoping I was going to be wrong, to be honest, because I wanted this to be a classic 6-7 game series. But again, that really has not been the case. I mean, Cleveland has actually played pretty well. I will give them some credit there. I mean, Game 1, they won the game, but again, J.R. Smith did his thing and George Hill bricked a free throw. And if it wasn't for J.R. Smith, that would have been the story that George Hill missed a free throw that cost them the game. But J.R. Smith has arguably the most boneheaded play in NBA history, so everyone's forgetting about George Hill. So obviously now it's frustrating. And then Game 2, Steph Curry went to explode for 33 points, Durant 26 points, Klay Thompson 20 points. So all 3 of the big guns are rolling, and they beat Cleveland by almost 20 points there. And then Game 3, so Cleveland's been really good at home. I think they've only lost 1 home game in the playoffs so far, and that was to the Indiana Pacers in the first round. And they had the lead in the first half. They had 10, I believe, at one point, and it went down to the wire. But then Durant hits a 3 from basically half court. Steph Curry, who they silenced all night, he had a big 3 as well. And it just Game 3 is a perfect example of what makes the Warriors so frustrating. I mean, Kevin Durant was really the only player that truly had played at his best last night. He had 43 points, 13 boards, 7 assists. But they completely held Steph Curry in check. Again, like I said, only had 1 3-pointer. He had finished with 11 points. Klay Thompson, only 10 points. Draymond Green, 10 points. So Cleveland, they played amazing. However, Durant, who you could argue is the second best player in the world, played out of his mind, and he carried Golden State to a big Game 3 lead and a Game 3 victory, sorry. And, it's frustrating if you're a Cleveland fan or a LeBron fan because LeBron is playing fantastic. You really can't knock anything he's doing. He basically has a triple-double every game, and yet he still can't overcome this team of Golden State, and it's frustrating because you can't really say Golden State built this team unfairly either, because when you look at their lineup, they drafted Draymond Green, they drafted Klay Thompson, they drafted Steph Curry. So all these other teams, they had shots to get these guys, and they didn't get them. I mean, other than Kevin Durant, who they fairly signed. I mean, they didn't, bend any rules to get that done. They signed him to a max deal. And now look at them now. They're arguably the greatest team in NBA history. I mean, I think this team would beat the Bulls dynasty. I think this team would beat the Lakers dynasty. I think this team would beat the Celtics dynasty. And I know basketball purists might not like that, but this team is absolutely phenomenal. Durant is arguably one of the greatest scorers to ever play the game. Klay Thompson and Steph Curry are arguably two of the best shooters to ever play the game as well. And Draymond Green's a fantastic defender. I mean, this team is just really, if you kind of, in your mind, you wanted to build the perfect basketball team, this is a pretty close representation of what that would look like. So, Golden State, this is what now, 7 of the past 8 finals games have won against Cleveland. So, I mean, looking back, you're going to say oh, wow, that was so cool how Cleveland and Golden State played 4 times in the NBA Finals. But it's no, when you really break it down, though, despite the fact they played each other in the finals 4 years in a row, it really wasn't close, except for the miracle that Cleveland pulled off in that second year where they came back from 3-1. So, as a basketball fan, I hope this is the final chapter of these two teams going at it, because it's been such a one-sided affair. And I think the story now is whether or not Game 4 in Cleveland, will that be the last time we see LeBron James wearing a Cleveland Cavaliers uniform?
Oh, man, it seems that whoever you talk to, the big thing is who's better. The Bulls back in the day, Golden State now. Is it Michael Jordan? Is it LeBron James? Is it Wayne Gretzky? Is it Connor McDavid or Sidney Crosby? In my perspective, it's two completely different eras. The game was played way different back then, that in my mind, it's hard to even compare who is the better player. LeBron James is absolutely dominating now. Kevin Durant is absolutely dominating this era. Back then, Michael Jordan absolutely dominated. Wayne Gretzky dominated back then, and now Sidney Crosby is dominating now. Connor McDavid's starting to dominate now. It's just two completely different eras. The game was played completely different. You had more brute force back then. I don't know what team now has a Shaquille O'Neal. Plain and simple. I don't know who has a Dikembe Mutombo. It was played so different back then. And then you look at the NHL, you got absolute bruisers back then who couldn't even skate. They shouldn't have been on the ice. If they were on the ice now, they wouldn't be able to keep up with a fourth line guy on the Winnipeg Jets, for example. It's just two completely different games that it really is hard for me to compare. Yes, I say right now, LeBron James is the best player in the history of basketball for right now in his era. Back then, Michael Jordan is the best. You put them together, well, obviously two of the best players, but I really think it is hard to put them together and say, this guy was better than this guy was better than this guy. I think they were just two of their best, two of the greatest. They're going to go down in their time as the greatest players. But I think heading into the series, and a lot of the talk wasn't even really about the series. It was sort of, can LeBron James shock the Golden State Warriors? Could any team beat the Golden State Warriors from the Eastern Conference, whether it be Boston? If Boston got past Cleveland, did they have a chance? If Philadelphia would have got past Boston and then, LeBron James, would they have had a chance? Did anybody realistically from the Eastern Conference this year have a chance to beat the Golden State Warriors?
The NBA Finals was the Western Conference Finals, the Rockets and the Warriors. The Rockets were the only team that even realistically had a shot at taking down the Warriors. And I'm even surprised that won 7 games, to be honest. I thought Golden State would win that in 5. So, the East it really was a fun 3 rounds of basketball. Even, again, go back to that first round, the Pacers, the Cavaliers series was a blast to watch. Also the second round wasn't too much fun if you're a Raptors fan, but and then the Eastern Final between Celtics and Cavs was another great series as well. But the whole time in the back of my mind as I'm watching all these games, it's it's just fun basketball and whatever, but this really doesn't mean a damn thing, because in the end, you're going up against Golden State, and there's no way you could take down that giant. None of these teams can. So really, this NBA summer is going to be insane because I believe now all these teams, well, I think they knew that before, but all these teams realize that, okay, none of us are good enough to beat the Warriors. What do we got to do here to even give us a shot? And LeBron James will be on the market more than likely, and I think that's going to really change the league and change the game forever. It really depends on where he goes. I think he has every excuse to leave Cleveland, and the people of Cleveland will obviously be upset, but I think they would kind of understand, really, okay, we didn't really give you a roster that you can compete with, so our bad, and best of luck to you. Best of luck to you, really. So what does he do? I don't know. I mean, obviously every team in the league would gladly take him, but if I'm LeBron, he's not going to be chasing the money. The whole thing in his mind will be, where can he go to build another Miami Heat type super team? Maybe it is Miami, I don't know. Or where can he just join and he'll be the final piece of the puzzle that takes down the Golden State Warriors? So I really don't like what the sport and the league has come to be honest. I mean, growing up, basketball was my favorite sport and whatnot. I always loved watching the NBA playoffs. And again, I'm kind of contradicting myself. Like I said before, the Warriors have fairly built this team and whatnot. But yeah, they've kind of ruined basketball for me in a way because the whole season, like you could pretend you didn't know, or you could pretend you thought some other team was going to win or whatever. But at the end of the day, we all knew from opening night that the Warriors were going to win the NBA title unless someone got hurt or whatever. And even though Steph Curry he was hurt for a chunk of the year. Even then, I was like, it really doesn't matter. Like, it's their title to lose. And going into next year, it's going to be the same thing. And going into the year after that, it's going to be the same thing because it seems like all these guys have completely bought in, and none of them are going to go chase some money and go join like a Sacramento Kings and be the star of that team because all these guys realize what they have the opportunity to do. They can be the greatest dynasty in the history of professional basketball if they stay together. And I think they realize that, and I think that's what they're going to do. So these teams are going to have to get creative because if no one else builds a super team soon, I mean, this is just going to be the Warriors year after year after year after year. And we're only 4 years in, and I'm already sick of it, Darnell. So, but sadly, I don't see it ending anytime soon either. So it's going to be a frustrating next couple of years for basketball fans if you're not a Warriors fan, that's for sure.
Honestly, I could not be on the page anymore with you. I absolutely hate super teams, and realistically, if you look at the NBA this year, how many teams could win? Maybe two could win the NBA Finals. Realistically, any team that got here, like Houston, would be up like this probably on LeBron James and the Cavaliers, and maybe 3 or 4 teams overall that could have actually won the NBA championship. There's 30 teams in the league, 30 plus. That should not be a fact. That is absolutely garbage in my mind. They have these super teams. You're starting to see it in the MLB, and a team that you're starting to see that drop. I think we can both agree that the series is probably over in 4 games tomorrow. If not, Cleveland wins 1 and then goes back to Golden State and loses. But a team that we both love, both dear and near to our hearts. They were good for a couple years back. Now they're just awful. The Toronto Blue Jays, so far back in the East American League, so far back in the wild card. We're going to talk about that to wrap up the First Row Sports Show. See what they're doing. 26-35. They lost 2 straight, starting up a series with the Baltimore Orioles tonight. That's coming up. You're listening to the First Row Sports Show. Darnell and Taylor.
Don't go anywhere. More of the First Row Sports Show is coming right up.